Good morning and welcome. This is Elsa Kepi coming at you on either in Facebook or on YouTube. And you can find out lots about me on my website, pleasureforhealth.com. Today, I wanted to touch on the topic of why is emotional abuse so traumatic? And I think this is just touching in a little bit from the field of restorative justice. And the father of restorative justice wrote exclusively on this. He was, let me get the name for you. This is, hang on, Changing Lenses, Restorative Justice for Our Times, Howard Kehr. And honestly, it's amazing to read this and put it in the context of emotional abuse, because really we are the victims of a crime, if you will, and we are dealing with the same kind of trauma as if we were put through an attack. We have been put through multiple attacks on many levels. And so what I wanted to touch on today was, why is this so devastating and why is it so difficult to recover from? And the way that Howard Kehr has put it in the book, I thought was quite apt to our topic. And he described it as being devastating because it upsets two fundamental assumptions on which we base our lives. One is the belief that the world is an orderly and meaningful place. So that is that we have the belief that the world makes sense. Somehow it makes sense to kind of, if we do good things, we get good things back. If we do this, X happens. Like somehow there's an order and a meaning to life. So that's one assumption that we base our wholeness on. The second assumption that we need really is that we have a personal autonomy, that we have an ability to, just turning off the notifications there, that we have the ability to make our own decisions and make our choices in life. So personal autonomy would be that second fundamental aspect of kind of being human and being whole, because both of those assumptions are essential to our wholeness. So when we are attacked, whether that's a violent crime or a long-term emotional abuse or physical abuse or trauma, both of those things are attacked. And so we are suddenly thrown into a state where we lose our belief. We lose our belief in the world. We lose our belief in ourselves. This part is upset, and we start asking questions like, why did this happen to me? Why did God let this happen to me? Why did the universe put this test for me? I must be a bad person, or, what is the deal? And the answers to these questions are important because we have to restore a level of meaning to our lives. We have to restore some kind of understanding of our own autonomy in order to survive, in order to get through. And so what comes up as a coping strategy, and what I notice when I work with women in this field, is that blame is it's an easy way to restore these assumptions that we need. And so blame is an important way of providing answers in order to restore meaning and some semblance of wholeness. We can blame the perpetrator. We can blame our family. We can blame, the drugs. If our partner was addicted to drugs, we can blame something, just something out there to blame, helps us kind of restore meaning. It's like, okay, because that was the problem, that's why all this stuff is happening. And we often put that blame out there on someone else. So let's say that's a coping strategy, and fundamentally it works in the sense that it helps us to create meaning in our life. Okay, that happened because that person was a bad person, or that person is an abuser and always will be an abuser. That person's narcissistic, so that's why this happened. So we blame the other person. Okay, so the problem with that as a coping strategy is that when we blame the other person, now we don't have autonomy anymore, because we're kind of at the mercy of those other people in our lives. We're at the mercy of the narcissist, or we're at the mercy of people taking advantage of us because they are bad people and they always come, do something to us. We are losing our autonomy. So that's the second thing that I, back at the beginning of this video, said was important to our wholeness, was that we have self-autonomy. So when we blame other people, we're actually taking away our own self-autonomy. And so now, in order to deal with that, we have self-blame. So now we've done something wrong, and we try to figure out what we could fix, what action did we do that was wrong, so that we can not do that action, or so that we can, so now something's wrong with us. So now we're blaming the other person, and we're blaming ourselves in order to get back those fundamental aspects that are those beliefs that are necessary for us to survive. So so this is not going to be a long-term solution, because now, unless we want to live with the shame of, okay, we're wrong and they're wrong and everything's wrong, now we have restored that version that, the world makes sense and that we have autonomy, but, we've restored the world in kind of an upside down. Now the world makes sense in it's always bad. We're always going to have this. We're always victimized. And now we've created this world and this meaning of us in the world in this negative way. So now we're stuck with that. So here's where we're at. And I see that a lot. And, that's a place where a lot of people get stuck. And they kind of, if you're stuck in a negative world where things make sense, but everything always goes wrong for us, then that's not really going to help us move forward. It's not going to help us, we're going to get depressed. I'm already depressed just thinking about it. We're going to get depressed. We're going to get, worn down. We're going to feel like overwhelmed. We're going to feel like it's not worth it. And, in the end, our self-esteem is going to take a tank way down, and we're not going to feel like it's worth living. And so, our coping strategies have ended up not taking us to the right place, even though they kind of helped in the time. So something else has to happen besides blame and shame and deflection and denial and all of these things. And this is where it's very interesting to look at the field of restorative justice or transformational justice in these types of cases. Now, I think it's a complex case when, if you're actually looking to, reconnect or put people together. I'm not talking about getting back with your abuser or anything like that. I'm talking about within us. Within us, we have this opportunity to restore connection with ourselves, restore connection with our own goodness, restore connection with our own light, if you will, whichever words you want to put on that, and restore connection in a way that is loving and kind and compassionate and doesn't rely on us being wrong or the other person being wrong. What if we could find a way to transform that into, these things happened, and it doesn't need to make sense officially because I make sense, because I'm going to take myself into another place where I'm not going to allow, I'm just going to be different and not allow people to take advantage of me, because I'm not attracting that anymore. And how am I not attracting that anymore? By transforming my integrity, myself. I'm not full of holes. I'm not full of needs that I'm not recognizing. I have turned my lens inward, and I'm not just blaming myself. Now I'm learning to love myself. And I know that sounds really cliche, but the transformation happens by, making a relationship with ourselves again, by turning inwards and figuring out who we are. Who are we when we're not blaming and being in shame all the time? What are our values? What do we believe in, outside of that? How do we reinstate our faith? And I don't mean that it has to be a come to Jesus moment or a religious moment or anything like that, but what do we believe in, and what can we hold on to in ourselves or in the universe or in nature or in, spiritual tradition, if you'd like, how do we reinstate that? Because it's a profound disconnect with all of those aspects of ourselves that leaves us vulnerable to this type of abuse. And I can speak for myself, that's where I got to, was just a disconnect and a not knowing of myself led to more and more abusive situations because I wasn't in integrity with myself. And that's not a blaming thing. It's not like, oh, I'm a bad person. It's like, well, let's get to know myself then, right? Let's be real. Let's get to know what my needs are, what my failures are, what my weaknesses are. Where do I get triggered? Where do I fall into those traps? And if I know that about myself, can I find other ways to meet those needs so I'm not falling into the same cycles again? Because I'm actually going, okay, you know what? I know that I like to help people. And so if somebody is sick, I find it hard to have boundaries. I want to help them. I want to be there for them. And sometimes I overgive or I over rescue because I know that, they need so much, right? So that's a weakness in me. So as soon as somebody gets sick now in my circles, it's not that I don't help them, but I sit down and have a really good talk to myself first. And I say, hey, self, how much am I really willing and able to give in this situation? And what is really going to be helpful in this situation for this person? And how can I hold myself accountable so that I'm not overgiving or overhelping in this situation? And so I'm really learning that's a weakness for me. I like to do that. And I need to be honest with myself. And, am I helping this person for some other reason to get my needs met? Do I need to be seen as the savior? Do I like when I get validation from people? Oh, you're so amazing. You do all this stuff for people. If I'm going from that perspective, what do I need to change about my own self? So this is where the self-inquiry comes in. And, this is a process. And often it really does help to have a mentor or someone to work with, a coach or a therapist or, maybe a good friend. But often you need somebody that you're not concerned about that relationship breaking up. If you're working with a coach or a therapist or something, you're paying for this session, and that gives you the certainty that this person is spending time with you and hopefully for your good, right? So this is a helpful thing for having a guide or a mentor or a coach like that. And having a framework. I know that many of my clients really enjoy the fact, well, I wouldn't say enjoy, they really love and appreciate the fact that I've created a framework that takes you through this whole process of transformation, because I've been through it and I've taken many people through it, and I know the stages, I know the steps that you're going to hit, I know the barriers that you're going to hit. It varies for each person, of course, but they're very, very similar. And so having somebody who's been, has gone through that path before is really helpful to work with, and having a compass of which direction you're going and what are the next steps likely to be and how can you prepare. So all of these things are important. So I just wanted to bring up that because I really thought it made a lot of sense for us as to why being the target of emotional abuse is so devastating and traumatic, is because it really hits us at this fundamental level of, that the world is a meaningful place and that we have any type of autonomy in this world. And so those two fundamental things, we have to restore those two things in our own lives in order to really heal. So I love that. I was reading about it today. I'm facilitating and discussing in a community of mine about using restorative and transformative justice. So it's up in my field right now, and I wanted to share that with all of you. If you are interested in finding out more about me or working with me in any kind of formal way, other than just here in the group or on YouTube, please do reach out. You can book a call with me and we can talk about your particular situation. You can book that at www.ailsakeppie, so my name, AILSAKEPPIE.com/apply, APPLY. Book a call with me. There's only a few spaces each week, but it's absolutely free. I'll spend an hour with you, no obligation. Let's just talk it through and see what the next step might be for you, see where you can get clear with your your goals, where you're making coping strategies that might not in the long term really serve your life purpose. So let's talk about that. And I look forward to having you book a call, and I will talk to you all soon.